Well, howdy campers, check this one out. What do you do when your water reservoir is empty? You go and investigate, and you find this. I think we can understand what happened there. This is where the water just came right through. Thanks to everyone online as well for giving us the heads up on what it was. Some basic tools, 10mm, 13mm spanner, never leave home without them. We've got our modified 32mm, which is to remove the fan with. This is the genius tool, shout out to Angel for his idea. An oil filter removal tool which fits around the pulley and holds the pulley nice and tight while you do other things like removing those 10mm bolts as well. We've got an H6 in there somehow, I'll show you that later. We've got our ratchets, 10mm and 13mm, which is the basic what you need here. And obviously you also need a screwdriver for the hose clamps, the Jubilee clips. We've got quite a few of those, also the radiator and the intercooler pipe. So there it is, a basic set of tools. This was done on the driveway, on the lawn in fact, so you can do this anywhere with your own set of simple tools. Look at that, it looks quite shiny, isn't it? So yeah, this one was just made by heating it up and bending it in a vise, and it just kinks it in enough so you can get behind there to that big nut. It's a 32mm obviously. Does work, or you can just buy one at eBay to do the same trick. This was genius. Just holds the pulley nice and tight, because sometimes that nut is really tight and you really struggle to get it off. Or you can use a hammer and a punch, as I said. But hey, it just knocks it loose, and then you can spin the fan, take it all off. And there you go. That's part one, probably the most fiddly part. Although we'll come to some of that later as well. Here's our oil filter tool as well, which holds the pulley nicely for your 10mm bolts, which in this case are pretty tight. I don't know who installed it, but this is quite a lot. So to hold the pulley in place with the oil filter tool just makes it so much easier. So there's 4 of these guys in there. At least you can get around the cowling to get to them, take them off. Obviously you got your fan belt from the alternator as well, and here's our problem. You can see it. The fan cowling has been removed. Obviously we just take these loose and we can get some wiggle room, because there's not a lot of space. The whole fan cowling is held on by 2 8mm nuts. So here on the water pump itself we've got a nut 13mm, and we've got 4 10mm bolts. And randomly we got this little H6 hex bolt in there for some reason. I don't know if that's standard. Anyway, this means we only need a couple of tools to take the whole thing off. We need to remove our hoses obviously, because that's going to hold things in place as well, and empty the old coolant that was still in there. Nice and green, which means it wasn't just water, which is also quite encouraging, I suppose. This one here, I'm just going to twist it up out of the way, leave it on the other side there, and yeah, just take these bolts out. These ones we were very lucky with, because they weren't rusted in place, which can happen as well. They came loose quite freely, luckily, because I think sometimes you can have some horror stories. And yeah, just trying to keep track of where the bolts were. So yeah, I made this little card up. This is a shout out to either Britannic or Trailer Fitters Toolbox, one of the two. Came up with this idea to keep track of where your bolts go. On the 200 TDI they're all the same size basically, doesn't really matter, but I think on a 300 TDI you got a couple of really long ones that go right into the motor block, the engine block, and you got to keep track of which lengths go. It makes it a lot easier when you come back to reassembly, and it keeps it all in one place. So now the bolts are loose. Gave it a quick tug with a little crowbar, a little nudge basically, and it just came right loose. So a bit of residual water in the motor block there. Luckily we've still got our tray at the bottom catching all the fluids. And there it is. Well, here's a good demo of what happened to the oil pump and water pump. So yeah, the old gasket was also held on with some silicone, looks like. So now we need to clean all of that up and make it as clean as possible for the new paper gasket, obviously. So this is where it goes a little bit sideways. It was in a blue bag, but it looks pretty shiny to me, so I'm pretty happy with that. And for the money, I just can't believe what you get for him. This was, I think, 40 euros. That's quite a lot of engineering for that amount of money. Luckily, it fits. And look how different it looks on this old engine. So this is the paper gasket. It says made in, and we will never know where it was made. You can leave your comments down below what you think, where you think it was made. So there's that little thing on the right hand side. It's like a little point kind of thing. There's no nut there, which holds that side of the water pump on, and the other one is the bolt coming out of the block, and basically that centers everything, so you know everything's in the right place. And then we go ahead and put all the bolts back in. And what I did do here is do them up like a wheel. If you change your wheel, do them cross, left to right, up to down, not just in a round circle. This little hex bolt being tied up there. Next, put back our hoses. All very simple, basically. They go on quite easily. Even this bad boy here. This one slides up quite a lot. And we have to remember to nip them up, tighten them all, because sometimes you use carry on with something else and you forget, and then you start the car and there's a big problem. But here we've got them all nice and tightly nipped up. And there it is. Time for the pulley. This is reverse order, obviously. 10mm bolts. Don't forget the fan belt. What I did do here, I just loosened it, I think 2 or 3 turns, the tightness of the alternator. Gave it a little more room, just to center up the pulley, but it basically goes on there right very easily without much tension on it, let's say. And you can get the pulley tightened up nicely on there. These are made of hand tight, which is enough, and these ones are tightened up. I can't give you the torque settings, maybe I'll drop them in the video, which is a major faux pas. This is the tension on the belt running around the alternator. So this was the fun part, where you go and try and put the cowling back. Obviously I put it in back to front, and then I put it in upside down, and there's not a lot of wiggle room here at all to work with, and it all comes in quite at an angle, just the right amount of wiggle room there just to get around the pulley as well. And then it slots into the bottom, and then at the top we've got our 2 little 8mm nuts, bolts actually. Back with the 2 hoses on this side, which is quite necessary, part of the engine as well. The intercooler hose, remember to nip these up. There we go, just about there. Now all we need to do is put the fan back. And what I've decided to do here is replace the viscous. So here's a new one. I thought while we're here, you might as well just replace it. This was also about, I think, 30 euros. Even comes with brand new bolts, nice and shiny. So now, old and new. Now time to put the whole thing back together, and this was a bit of a fiddle. Remember to loosen the cowling, so you got a bit more of a wiggle room up and down, and it's backwards and it's a reverse thread, and the nut is actually loose compared to the fan. So if you turn the fan, the nut won't turn, just to try and get that start. So this took a bit of a while, a couple of minutes just to try and fiddle it, and there's not much room in there already. And then with our little spanner we could just nip it up nice and tight. And normally you won't have to do this that tight, because it'll as it spins it tightens itself anyway, because it's a reverse thread. So the cowling sits there with these 2 little bolts, and there's a little channel down there. You can see that little U there. Remember to put that in there, because if it doesn't, it won't sit square and the fan will rub on that side of the cowling. Something I ran into, so I thought maybe let's just share that. Time to fill it up again. Yeah, I did replace this with pure coolant afterwards. This was just to test the thing if there is any leaks or any of that respect. So guys, there it is. It's a very simple job. Basically, it's a bit fiddly. You got basic tools, nothing too daunting in my opinion. And you can do this on your driveway or on the lawn, as I did today. And basically, it's a job that you can farm out to in the garage. But I thought, no, in this case, it's that simple. I can just do it myself. I learned something as well, and also basically it gives you an idea of how simple these engines really are. In effect. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope give me some constructive comments down below. And yeah, so keep rolling. Catch you on the next one. Cheers.